Rain crawled down the pine needles in thin silver threads as Staff Sergeant Cole Ransom steadied his breathing on the slick rock. The mountain air tasted of cold iron, and each inhale carried the muted roar of distant thunder. Camouflage netting clung to his shoulders like a second skin, the soaked fibers darkening to match the moss beneath him. He lay with the patience of a glacier, unmoving except for the slight shift of his gloved finger resting along the rifle's trigger guard. Beside him, Sergeant Maya Torres scanned the fog-wrapped valley through her binoculars, her posture taut but controlled. She had the kind of composure that made silence feel purposeful rather than oppressive. Even now, half frozen, rain hammering her hood, vision limited to ghostly outlines, she radiated a steadiness that anchored Ransom more than the earth beneath them. She whispered occasional range estimates, each one delivered with steady confidence. Their assignment had sounded routine enough. Observe a suspected enemy courier and confirm the truth behind recent regional disturbances. Yet the moment they had taken position, the world had begun to feel wrong. Interference pulsed through their comms like a failing heartbeat. The valley's usual wildlife, birds, insects, mammals, had fallen into an unnatural hush. Not even the wind dared push through the pines with its usual restless cadence. Ransom swept his scope across the lower ridge, careful to track every movement. Nothing stirred but rain and mist. Still, unease crawled up his spine. His instincts had saved him through tours he didn't care to recount, and those instincts now tightened like a vice. Maya lowered her binoculars, the rain sliding off the lenses in quick droplets. "You feel it too," she murmured. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he checked the rifle's bolt, then the bipod stability, though everything was already perfect. "Something's off," he finally said. "Not enemy tactics. Something else." A soft tremor rolled through the stone beneath them. At first he mistook it for distant thunder, but the vibration sharpened, humming directly through his elbows and into his chest. Maya pressed a hand to the ground, eyes narrowing. "That's not weather." The tremor grew, not violent, but unnervingly deliberate, like a pulse from deep beneath the mountain. The air thickened, charged with an energy that lifted the tiny hairs along Ransom's arms despite the cold. His radio sputtered, then crackled with a piercing burst of static. A tone, sharp, melodic, almost inquisitive, cut through the interference before dissolving back into silence. Ransom exchanged a look with Maya. She tried switching to auxiliary frequency, but the radio only answered with another faint, alien chime. A shifting shimmer appeared between the trees on the far slope. It flickered at first like heat rising from asphalt, but the temperature dropped noticeably, their breath turning to fog banks around their faces. The shimmer stretched, widened, and began sliding downhill with eerie smoothness. Ransom aimed toward it, adjusting the magnification. What he saw in the scope made his muscles lock. Light bent around the distortion, collapsing inward like a star imploding in motion. The forest dimmed, shadows sharpening despite the overcast sky. He whispered, "What the hell is that?" Before Maya could respond, the comms blared with a voice that wasn't a voice at all. Tones threaded with meaning, neither human nor mechanical. It resonated deep in their skulls. "We have found the marksman." The distortion swelled, its edges sharpening into impossible geometry as it approached. Ransom steadied his grip, pulse hammering but resolve hardening. Whatever had come through the rain-soaked mountains hadn't arrived by accident, and it hadn't come for both of them. It had come for him. Maya's breath hitched as the shimmering figure descended the slope, its outline bending the rain around it like threads pulled from a tapestry. Ransom felt a primal warning surge through him. Not fear exactly, but the sharpened clarity that arrived only when danger eclipsed doubt. He tapped Maya's shoulder, a silent command born of years working together. They withdrew from the exposed ridge and slipped into the dripping undergrowth, their movements synchronized, efficient, quiet despite the sodden terrain. Behind them, the distortion pulsed, and new shapes peeled out of its glow, sleek silhouettes encased in translucent armor. Their steps made no sound, yet each one landed with a predatory certainty. Ransom had seen elite units from every corner of the world, but nothing in his experience compared to this deliberate, almost ceremonial advance. These weren't drones or automated scouts. Their posture radiated intelligence and intent. As soon as the slope concealed them, Maya activated a jamming loop on her damaged radio. It wouldn't block anything advanced, but it might delay tracking for a few precious seconds. Her face gleamed with rain and tension, yet her voice remained steady. "Where?" "North tree line," Ransom murmured, pointing to a narrow corridor of firs where the ground dipped into shadow. It offered poor visibility but deep concealment. More importantly, it forced any pursuer into single-file movement. He didn't know what these creatures were, but bottlenecking them felt like the only advantage he could create. They ran low, weaving through dripping branches. The forest around them began to flicker, brief stutters in the air like reality hiccuping. Ransom didn't pause to understand it. He simply noted each glitch and kept moving. A sudden lance of blue-white energy slammed into a nearby trunk, vaporizing bark and hurling splinters across the slope. Maya dropped to a knee, pulling Ransom down with her. "They're marking us," she whispered. Then we changed the pattern. He swung left and motioned her to follow. Instead of retreating deeper, they circled back upslope, using the rain-slick rocks for unpredictable angles. The creatures fired again, but their shots trailed behind, confused by the altered trajectory. Ransom planted a shaped charge, one of two they carried, behind a cluster of stones. He meant it for an emergency extraction, not a firefight, but priorities had shifted. Maya paused long enough to scan the tree line. They're tracking heat and motion. Their scouts move like they already know the terrain. Ransom nodded. "But they don't know us." He triggered the charge once they gained enough distance. The detonation cracked through the valley, startling the oppressive silence back into the world for an instant. Shards of rock and mud erupted into the air, forming a temporary smokescreen of dust and steam. The alien silhouettes halted, recalibrating. Ransom used the moment to assess their pursuing force. 6 figures, each moving with fluid mechanical grace, and a larger one remaining at the epicenter of the distortion. That one radiated authority, its posture rigid and regal. Even from this distance, Ransom felt its focus cutting through the trees like a blade. He and Maya reached a fallen log wedged between 2 boulders, forming a naturally sheltered pocket. They dropped into cover, breaths heavy but controlled. Maya wiped rain from her brow and studied his face. "They're not here for reconnaissance." "No," Ransom said. "They're hunting." A faint chime, similar to the earlier signal, filled the air. This time it carried a sharper edge, like a warning or command. The creatures advanced again, methodical and unwavering. Maya tightened her grip on her rifle. "Why you?" Ransom didn't answer immediately. He didn't know, and the absence of answers pressed on him like an extra weight. But he felt the truth forming beneath the uncertainty. These beings weren't reacting to something he'd done. They were anticipating something he might one day do. He glanced at Maya, seeing the same determination he relied on in every impossible situation. "We're not giving them what they want," he said. "Not here. Not now." The distortion brightened behind the alien line, casting eerie reflections through the storm. Ransom steadied his breathing, preparing for the next move. The hunt was far from over, but he had no intention of being cornered. The forest trembled as their pursuers closed in, silent and relentless, and Ransom knew the real chase had only just begun. Maya's stumble was small, barely more than a soft misstep on the drenched earth, but Ransom heard the shift in her breathing before she spoke. When he turned, he saw the bloom of dark blood spreading beneath her jacket, its edges diluted by the rain, but unmistakably fresh. Her expression tightened, not in panic, but in frustration at her own body's betrayal. She braced a hand against a tree, breath shaking for the first time since the hunt began. "Keep moving," she insisted, though her voice wavered. "It's not deep." Ransom crouched beside her, assessing the wound with practiced efficiency. The angle of blood told him the blast had grazed, not pierced, but a shard of rock had cut deeper than either of them realized. He pressed gauze against it, feeling her flinch despite her efforts to remain still. "You need pressure and a stable position," he said. "We stopped for 60 seconds. No more." She nodded, jaw set, eyes burning with the same stubborn resilience that had pulled them both through missions they should not have survived. "You're thinking too far ahead," she murmured. "Focus on the next step." Her words steadied him more than she knew. He scanned the slope, listening to the forest. The alien hunters had gone quiet again. Not gone, only repositioning. Their silence was never comforting. It was the calm before a precise and deliberate tightening of the noose. Ransom helped Maya lean against a broad fir trunk. She wiped rain from her face and drew her rifle up with her uninjured arm. She would not be dead weight. She never had been. He felt the weight of her determination and the risk she carried just staying upright. They didn't have long. A gravitational tremor rippled through the ground, stronger than the earlier pulses. The world seemed to inhale and hold its breath. Ransom steadied himself against a boulder as the distortion field widened across the valley, bending the rain into spiraling arcs. The energy pressed against his lungs, as though space itself were folding inward. Then the commanding figure appeared again, drifting between the trees with the unhurried grace of something that knew it could not be challenged. Its crystalline armor refracted the forest into fractured shards. When it spoke, the tones resonated like overlapping chimes, shaping meaning without recognizable language. Yet Ransom understood. "Your decisions diverge from predicted timelines," it intoned. "The convergence point approaches." Maya muttered under her breath. "I hate cryptic villains." Ransom didn't lower his weapon. "You're here for me." "What?" The alien's posture shifted, as though considering how much to reveal. "Your eventual actions destabilize the Dominion. A single act propagates through the lattice of futures. Remove the catalyst, and the collapse ceases." "So all this," Ransom said, "because of something I might do someday?" The tones deepened. "A single shot. A fulcrum. It births a human ascension that threatens all controlled order." Maya huffed softly. "Sounds like they're afraid of you succeeding." Ransom felt the weight of the alien's attention, from its towering silhouette down to its faceless focus boring into him. He didn't know what future they feared, only that his existence interfered with it. That alone told him everything about their intentions. They didn't negotiate. They corrected. A faint shimmer of drones materialized around the commander, their forms swirling like liquid metal. The trap was nearly complete. Ransom touched Maya's shoulder lightly. "We climb," he whispered. She didn't question him. Despite the pain etched in her movements, she pushed herself upright, gripping his arm for a moment before steadying herself. They moved toward a narrow crag above them, jagged and slick, but defensible. The energy distortion intensified behind them, distorting sound and color. Each step felt heavier, as though gravity itself conspired to slow them. Near the ridge's crest, Ransom set his rifle on a natural stone shelf. Its scope was cracked from an earlier fall, but he adjusted it anyway, trusting instinct where precision had failed. Maya knelt beside him, face pale yet determined. "You have a plan," she said. "Not a good one," he replied, "but enough." Below them, the commander raised an arm, and the drones aligned with impeccable symmetry. Ransom exhaled slowly, settling into the quiet place inside himself where fear became focus. Whatever future the aliens dreaded, whatever shot they believed would echo through the stars, he knew only one truth. They would not decide his fate for him. The valley trembled again as he steadied his aim, and the world narrowed to a single breath. The rifle bucked against Ransom's shoulder, though the report was swallowed instantly by the distortion warping the valley. For a suspended moment, he thought the shot had vanished into the twisting air, lost before it ever truly existed. Then the bullet struck the gravitational ripple, fractured into 3 molten fragments, and curved in impossible arcs toward the crystalline commander below. The creature raised an arm too late. One shard pierced its core with a flare of blinding white, and its armor collapsed inward as if imploding around a dying star. The drones reacted in frantic unison, their synchronized harmony dissolving into discordant shrieks of energy. They spiraled erratically, slammed into trees, or crashed into the earth with sonic pops that left shaking pockets of displaced air. The distortion field flickered, dimmed, then collapsed entirely, dropping the world back into familiar gravity with a stomach-twisting lurch. Rain resumed its natural fall, no longer spiraling sideways or hanging motionless in strange suspended arcs. The pines exhaled mist as if the entire forest had been holding its breath. Ransom lowered the rifle, feeling the tremble in his fingertips. The recoil was not from the shot. It was the sudden release of pressure, the return of a world no longer warped by alien intent. Beside him, Maya sagged against the stone shelf, but her eyes were bright despite the strain. "You hit it," she whispered, half in disbelief, half in admiration. "You actually hit it." He gave a faint, humorless laugh. "Not sure that qualifies as aim." "It qualifies as something they didn't predict," she said, steadying herself with one hand on his shoulder. "That's enough." Below them, the fallen commander's form pulsed once, releasing a final ripple of fading light. Its core cracked like glass, spilling streams of luminescent vapor that dissipated into the rain. Whatever power had anchored their presence dissolved with it. The last drone fell from the sky like a dead insect, its metallic shell dimming to a dull gray. Silence took hold again, this time natural and unforced. The forest smelled of ozone and soaked earth, but it was still a forest, not a battlefield bent by alien physics. Ransom helped Maya stand fully, supporting her weight as she caught her breath. He inspected her wound again. The bleeding had slowed, though she winced at every shift. "We need an extraction," he said. "You can't keep moving like this." She smirked despite the pain. "You think anyone's picking up comms after what they did to our gear?" Before he could answer, a faint crackle sputtered through his radio, static at first, then a distant human voice struggling through interference. "Echo team, respond. Massive energy surge detected in your sector. Are you alive?" Ransom pressed the transmit button. "Two survivors. Coordinates transmitting manually. Hostile presence neutralized." There was a long pause, filled with the quiet hiss of rain. Then the voice replied, "Copy. Dispatching retrieval. Hold position." Maya let out a slow breath of relief and leaned her head back against the rock. "I'm not going to pretend I understand what just happened." "Good," Ransom said. "Means you're still sane." She chuckled weakly. "They were scared of you. Of something you do. Maybe this was it." Ransom looked down at the fractured valley, the remnants of alien brilliance fading like dying embers. "No," he said quietly. "This wasn't the future they feared. This was just the beginning." Maya studied him, searching his expression. "You think they'll come back?" "I think they weren't the only ones watching," he replied. "And whatever they were trying to prevent, we just confirmed humanity's potential to interfere with their plans." She nudged his arm carefully. "Then I guess they'll have to learn what everyone else already knows." "What's that?" "That you're stubborn, unpredictable, and annoyingly hard to kill." Ransom didn't argue. Instead, he scanned the sky, the clouds rolling back just enough to reveal a thin band of starlight above the mountains. The sight carried a weight he couldn't articulate, a sense that the universe had just opened a door he never asked to see behind. The radio crackled again, announcing the approach of the extraction team. Ransom adjusted his grip on Maya, helping her stand straighter. The valley was returning to normal, but he felt the shift inside himself, an awareness that the future the aliens feared had not been avoided, merely initiated. As the first helicopter rotors echoed through the mist, he whispered to no one in particular, "If they come again, we'll be ready." And for the first time since the distortion appeared, the world felt aligned with that promise.